Welcome one and all to the North America Challengers League Spring 2023 kickoff. I am Mazel, joined by Magical and Joshi, likely candidates as we found ourselves working together so much last year. But welcome to a new year and a new face of the developmental cycle of NA. Magical, are you as mad this year? Are you still feeling pretty magical as well?
I'm always feeling mad and magical. Come on. Who do you think I am? Who do you think I am?
Honestly, I'm just waiting for the introduction of Angry Adjective coming up in a series coming very soon to you guys. And it's honestly just great to be back. It has been a long off season. Worlds was great. We're starting to see LPL and LCK, but it's time for North America to start back up, baby.
Yeah, I think that's the most exciting thing is that we have had, changes and whatnot to the face of it, but it is just another year of League of Legends starting up, another year of players coming in with big aspirations and trying to achieve their goals, and especially with kind of the added structure to the development of this year, I think we're seeing a lot more of what the NA scene has to give, Magical.
I love it, honestly. I think how North American Challengers League is going to be this year is a big step up, because I've always loved Academy. I love Proving Grounds as well. Still got that going on, but just seeing the additional steps to have more faces get a chance to shine, more new rising stars that have opportunities as opposed to having to wait until the Proving Grounds itself to get that opportunity. This is just great. It's great all around for everyone.
Yeah, and as new faces, old faces come in, come out, we get to say goodbye to some of our favorite players, but they'll be moving up. We'll talk about that later. But we also have a lot of new players coming in. There's a ton of new opportunities for everybody every single time, and the addition of 6 new teams has just made it even more exciting.
Yeah, and we'll get to the, obviously, all the explanation of exactly how everything breaks down in just a little bit, but especially just seeing kind of the new faces, old faces, everything in between with NACL this year, especially the investment moving from certain teams to others, right? We have the addition of our fixed teams as well into the provisional teams bracket of 6, right? And I think seeing it shift away from EG and 100 Thieves and move into the likes of TL, things like that, Magical is really, really interesting.
No, it's phenomenal, honestly, just to see more teams getting interested in some of these provisional rosters, try to see if they can develop not just 1 but 2 teams at the same time. Like you look at Fly Fam as well. Papa Smithy going over to them. I think it's a great name. Also, it then brings up this whole conversation about when you look at how all of the provisional teams, at least that are LCS affiliated teams, have F, but F should stand for fixed, and so it should be the other way around. But the challenge, see, this is where it gets confusing. But we'll discuss that at another time. Because here, Flyfam, like you said, great name, but also really does go into Papa Smithy and how Papa Smithy likes to develop a lot of players at one time.
Yeah, we're not saying it's causative, but we are saying it is highly correlated that Papa Smithy happens to be having another team that is building a third roster.
No coincidences here, but we did put together a little explainer for what we have going on in NACL this year. So let's go ahead and throw it to Desrex with his explanation.
Welcome to the North American Challengers League. We've gone through quite a few renovations coming into 2023, but worry not, I'll be your guide. As we prepare for the next chapter of semi-pro play, why don't I give you a tour of some of the changes we have in store. The 2023 North American Challengers League will feature an expanded 16 teams that fall into one of 2 categories. The 10 franchise teams from last season will be known as fixed teams. Our 6 expansion teams will be known as provisional teams. These categories have implications on relegations, one of our big new changes. Only provisional teams can be relegated. We'll talk more about this in a moment. Moving on to the regular season, which consists of a single round robin where every team in the league will face off against each other in a best of 2. At the end of the regular season, all teams will be seeded into a double elimination playoffs bracket. After 3 weeks of play, we'll have a champion crowned on March 29th. This takes us to relegations. The 4 lowest placing provisional teams will compete against the top 4 from the 2 NACL qualifiers. This promotion tournament will take place on April 17th. The top 4 teams from this promotion tournament will qualify for promotion into the NACL summer. We'll have more updates on this as we get closer to the date. With more teams, games, and opportunities for promotion, I have no doubt in my mind we're in for the most exciting season of semi-pro play yet. Be sure to catch the North American Challengers League's first day on January 21st at 1 p.m. Pacific. I'll see you there.
No, he
So
won't.
we got to hear a little bit from Deserex, but especially breaking down that insane change of a format here, Joshi, as I really like what we've gotten, especially the separation of the year itself.
Yeah, it's definitely a very different opportunity, right? People have been clamoring for relegations at the LCS, but at least we have them here in the Challengers League, right? We will have opportunities to see new teams, new players, new organizations coming through every single time, and I think that makes it a little bit more enticing for a lot of these other organizations that were like looking to be part of the previous amateur system, now the semi-pro system, in order to continue to develop players, because not only does it get their name out a little bit more, we get that direct competition between previous semi-pro players and now going up against their challenge.
But we also just have to give a little cap or an adieu to some graduating players, as we have had to say goodbye to a few standout stars this year, but well done. And congratulations to our 5 would-be movers on. I believe that we do have a graphic made for them, and it's going to be up on your screen now. It is absolutely fantastic. We have Jan on the left side. We got Ayla. Then we have Tenacity, Busio, and Harry rounding it out in the mid lane. Congratulations to all of our graduates, and I can't wait to see what they do this year in the LCS.
Pomp and circumstance.
I love the little animation on top of it too, but magical. Give a little bit of give a speech, please, sir, speech.
You're the valedictorian at Magical.
Oh, I'm the valedictorian. Okay, well,
you got 30 seconds. Let's see what you got.
Good. Team Liquid, those players, honestly, I'm surprised we didn't see every single one of them after winning back-to-back splits. The first time we saw it in Academy history. We'll see if Challengers League has seen something similar ahead of us, but it was props to them. They all played out of their minds. I'm so happy to see that they're given that opportunity to play in the LCS. Same with Tenacity and Busio, 2 players that have always been in the conversation about going up to the pros, starting off in LCS, and the fact that they're both going to be on a very exciting 100 Thieves roster alongside Bjergsen and Double F. Great things to see that they got the vets and the rookies coming into one organization.
That's going to be pretty awesome. But now we got to move on to our next would-be graduates, potentially, as we have some prospects lined up for you all to kind of talk through. And Joshi, we've got Sniper up first.
Yeah, Sniper has been one of the most exciting top lane prospects coming through, and one of the things that has been insane about this guy is his ability to team fight later on. One of the big things that we're going to be looking for them to explore is improving their laning, but for now, we know that they're going to be a monster later on.
Then you have Mir Arthur, I think is also a fantastic player to kind of look at afterwards, because this guy played at Worlds, didn't have the best showing, but Oceania does struggle a little bit in international events. But this guy has been absolutely tearing it up over in Oceania. And then moving forward, for Unforgiven, Josh, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, Unforgiven has got to get Double Lift a little bit scared about his spot being secure up in the LCS, because this guy was their first all-pro player coming in from the Mad Lions in the LEC. We'll see how well they play, because we've seen what happens when players like Luger, some of the best players from other smaller regions, come. This was the best AD carry in a major region coming through, and now playing in the Challenger Series.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've seen some forays into this kind of pickup a lot in the past in Academy, but I'm very excited to see what Unforgiven can bring to the table, and especially, in this squad, in this roster, with what he's got going on for him, and like you said, maybe even trying to give Double Lift a run for his money. But you got to go to the next guy on our list, and it is Zazel, who...
no, this one's Yukino. We got to go over Yukino first.
I missed one.
Yeah, don't skip over Yukino. Even though Sniper's getting a lot of the attention, that guy is going to be a hype rookie. Now, and now I'll let you talk about Zazel.
Yeah, Zazel's not quite a rookie. We've seen this guy quite a bit. They had an opportunity to play a little bit under the Sola Fide brand, they who shall not be named, but they also have seen Zazel play at Worlds in the past. One of the strongest supports we've seen in North America, and honestly surprised that he had to end up taking a break a little bit and was a player coach for Cloud9 last year instead of just playing on a roster. Like, this guy is still super sick.
Player coach for a team that won LCS, right?
Won LCS, went to Worlds. This guy, I think, is going to be absolutely a terrifying support to deal with. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we just see him dominate in Academy, be the strongest support we see, and then immediately next split, get moved up to the pros.
It can be very likely. I definitely want to see what Zeyzal has changed up about his gameplay, and especially how he's approaching the game. I think I've always seen him as a pretty stalwart position on the map, especially shot calling, right, trying to dictate what's happening for his team. But I'm wondering, especially in the new kind of position he's in and coming off of the coaching style, does that change his approach to the game at all? But I think all of these prospects are people that you should keep your eye on, and especially just looking at how their debuts are going to go this spring and going on into this long split that we have here, Joshi. Anybody in particular out of those 5 that you're really, really keen on potentially being our next graduation?
I mean, I would not be surprised if Unforgiven moves up in the middle of the split, right? Like, this guy is so strong. I am fully convinced that this guy was picked up as a backup if Double Lift isn't quite as good as he was hoping he was going to be. Like, he had decent Champs Queue performances. He was pretty good in solo queue. He did well when he went over to Korea to actually do the boot camp there, but still, with a couple of years off and Unforgiven fresh off of his MVP.
Well, that also brings us to the matter at hand. We talked about the format. We gave a little bit of foreshadowing to what teams we have going on, but this is the list. All 16 teams in front of you. Yes, Magical.
You see what bothers me? Look at that. CLG Faith, FlyFam, and TL First. All with F, and there's Fixed Team on the other side. This is what bothers me. I get that they're cool names, but it still irks me.
Yeah, and I know I saw some questions in Twitch chat a little bit about the provisional teams. Yes, at this point, they all put in applications in order to actually join the league. But after this split is over, the bottom 4 provisional teams will have to play against the top 4 teams from the NACL qualifiers, which will be happening every day before the Path to LCS and Challengers League streams actually go live. So if you want to see the people who will be challenging for those spots after the split is over, make sure you tune into those broadcasts before we start.
Yep, exactly that. Thank you for the little additional information there. But now we also just got to look at what we have going on the day, right? We start off with it's not
Civil
Marvel.
War.
We got a Civil War, and then we're going into Cloud9 versus FlyFam, and then we got TL First versus EG Challengers. So many great storylines across the board. But Magical, let's go ahead and give a little bit of that look forward to the Civil War.
I mean, the fact that you have a Civil War to start off the day, it's always fantastic to see. But the thing is, it's going to be really difficult for a lot of the Faith fans out there, because CLG Faith going up against their sister team in CLG Challengers, it's pretty much like apples to oranges comparing them. It's going to like they're there for different reasons, right? You're there because some players you want to develop for maybe 2-3 years down the line, while Challengers is more maybe the next split or a year down the line, see how those players are going to do, especially because Challengers mostly are the same exact roster we saw last summer. The only difference is adding in copy.
Yeah, it's kind of wild too. Remember, we're moving over to a single round robin this time. With 16 teams, we'll play each other team once in a 2-game series. And that means that there will not be a rematch between these teams later on unless they have an opportunity to play each other in the playoffs at the end of the split. And so this is immediately establishing a pecking order. And just to kind of set some expectations, if CLG Faith win a game, I think that's a huge opportunity for them to say, hey, we're a lot better than people thought we were coming in.
Can I also just say really quickly, like, you know, with the whole provisional thing, the bottom
You're not
4
allowed,
teams,
Magically. Stop.
I'm saying it anyways. The bottom 4 teams, you know, they have to play in the relegation matchups. But what if, like, all 6 teams make it to playoffs and do really well?
See what happens when that actually happens, right? I mean, I think one of the things we're looking at is a lot of the, you know, the fixed teams, all the challenger teams are looking quite a bit stronger, whereas a lot of the provisional teams still need to prove it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and that's where maybe we've gotten used to kind of what Proving Grounds brings. We had even some incredible, upsets last year, but coming into this one, this will be an entire year of the essence that we get in Proving Grounds. I'm actually really excited to see kind of how a year, maybe a little bit more structure does for a lot of these teams, and especially like we're saying, kind of the dual teams where organizations are definitely throwing a wide net with 10 players and developmental roles across the board. Magical.
I mean, I think that's the difference between the challengers and the provisionals, right? Is challengers are players that you're looking for like more of an immediate future, maybe like split a year, 2 years, while the provisional teams is much more like 2, 3, possibly 4 years down the line.
Do you agree with that kind of sentiment, Joshi, in terms of like how approaching kind of with a 10-man developmental roster would be? I guess they are separated, but
Yeah, I mean, take a look at what's been happening with the 100 Thieves sniper, right? He started at 100 Thieves next. Now that he's old enough, he's playing for 100 Thieves Challengers. When he's old enough to play LCS, I would not be surprised if he instantly makes the move. It's just a matter of trying to see who you think you can develop long term, and it's an opportunity for especially the LCS organizations to kind of speculate on players, right? It's like, you think this guy might have what it takes.
Yeah, I think that's something also just looking at like the history, the track record of our development, and especially it just feels like the bump up in vision of these developing players last year was a lot of fun to see. But we got to go ahead and get into our first series of the 2023 North American Challengers split, and it is our Civil War, as we have stated before. It is CLG Challengers versus CLG Faith, and this Faith roster, while they may be the third team in the CLG system, they are no slouches. You've got Sarah not getting promoted, my boy. You got NXI. Sketch Dreams is going to be in at ADC today, as Plux will be the support, and Bijani in the top side.
I mean, I just am happy to see some of the Bay State boys getting moved up. I gotta talk to them at CLOL. Like, I gotta cast their game that they won over Converse as well. And just their excitement is invigorating, right? You just are there, and they just love playing the game. Also, let's not skip over the fact that Cernok is ripped as hell.
Yeah,
no big deal, right? Looks good in those new jerseys.
But we do also have to remember that not everything is super peaky right now in the CLG Faith camp, because Sketch Streams is intending to play the support role for most of the season, and Plux is currently an emergency sub due to the fact that CLG Faith, one of their players, was not able to participate in this upcoming split, and so Sketch Streams will be playing AD for the foreseeable future until we find out who is playing. But the exciting player, NXI, the boy, one of the best junglers that we've seen in the semi-pro ecosystem for a long time, is finally back. He had a long tenure with FlyQuest, and now he gets to play for CLG.
Yeah, seeing NXI, and we're going to get some clips of him here as well, but seeing him kind of come back into the fold, and especially with all the mechanical skill we've seen from this guy before Magical, it is exciting.
Exactly. It was one of those things where a lot of people talked about how it was upsetting not to see him brought back in 2022 into the Academy scene. Granted, UG is a fantastic star in his own right, but you're just more surprising that no other team picked up NXI because of how mechanically gifted he was, as well as reading the map so well, knowing the right place, right time that he needed to show up, who to focus, how to split up the map. And plus, he played in the LCS briefly. He got a chance to play against pro teams and did very well against them.
Yeah, very true. And his competition, at least across the board from him, will be their sister team in CLG Challengers. All the same from last split, except we have Copy coming over from Cloud9 Academy in 2022. And honestly, this is the reinvigoration in mid lane that I feel like this CLG Challengers roster exactly needed, Joshi.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Copy have so many cool things that he did, right? The Trinity Mirror triple turret dive that he went for last split, but we know that this roster is already going to be quite well. Breezy was one of the standouts for Magical last year, and Jenkins, Kevy, and Meech were all solid performers in their own right. I feel like Meech has a lot more growth that can still be done. I don't feel like he's hit his ceiling just quite yet, but the addition of Copy over Triple gives them a much-needed, almost like a wild card, somebody that can be much more aggressive in situations than Triple usually was.
And that's where I wonder, what version of Copy do we see in this one? Do we see, because we kind of saw a little bit of everything, right? I did a prospect video about it last year. It was like, you want anything, I can find you a clip that this guy does. And I especially really want to see kind of with these Jenkins and top lanes, pretty strong solo lanes, and here's that Trinity clip we were talking about, if Copy can really pass that bar to succeed. Magical.
I mean, I think Copy has been LCS ready for some time. Like, you look at his spring performance especially, he was the most dominant mid laner we had in Academy. And looking at Summer, he still was in the top conversation. One of the best players that we saw, and the fact that he hasn't gotten to the LCS just yet is kind of a shame, because you can see the mechanics he has. He's so aggressive compared to how he used to be back on 100 Thieves Next, where he filled up more of a supportive role. This last year, we saw huge growth out of him to become the star, to become that great hero the team needed for Cloud9 to round out everything else that they were bringing. And for CLG Challengers now, I feel like he's perfect. to fit that role. Kind of like Triple, but just a little younger and maybe someone who they could look to invest in the future for.
Yeah, Poppy is one of those players, right? When they first joined 100 Thieves Next, they were surrounded by a lot of strong players, especially when they moved on to Cloud9 Academy at the time. Because there was so many veterans, right? You had the Oceanic bot lane, you had Darshan, you had Malice and later Shaden coming through. You had a lot of experience surrounding you, and he played a much more supportive role back then. But now that he's on a team with much younger players who haven't been playing for nearly as long, this is an opportunity to kind of step up and not only be a crazy playmaker, but also potentially a shot caller.
Especially with the team that's been together for the last split. It's all four members that were before, and you already saw just now the clips of them, how they performed as a team. They were very cohesive. It was great to see. Like, sometimes they made really flashy plays. If you even think back to spring when Breezy was with Dokla and how those two paired up well together, it feels like adding Copy to the equation is just pretty much the icing on the cake.
Yeah, for me as well, getting to hear from Copy to some extent, also having talked to him, it's been a chip on his shoulder this split, and wanting to really show out that Cloud9, you should have kept me. And I think that's going to be something really interesting to keep an eye on, and especially, obviously when they face off. But as a whole, Copy is out to prove something this year, and I think there's a lot to say in terms of a lot of players wanting to prove themselves, but I have a special eye for Copy there as well. And I do believe that, as you see there, it is time to go ahead and spam in the chat. Is it going to be CLG Challengers or CLG Faith who take the win here? And we are going to be getting underway. So Magical Joshi, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Mazzella. As always, we'll see you after the game so we can get some more analysis on what happens afterwards. But like you were saying, make sure you're spanning either CLGC for the Challengers team or CLGF for the Faith team. Which one do you support? Which one do you think is going to take this first game in this best of two? As now we dive into Champion Select, we see Kindred and Wukong banned, plus the Yuumi. I'm more surprised to see Kindred and Wukong be the first bans for both teams, mostly because we've been seeing a lot more ADC focus if you look over to the LPL, LCK, and even this morning with the LEC.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those interesting games where I suspect that the two teams will have a little bit more familiarity with each other. And so these are things that I'm kind of expecting might have been scrim data having played against each other, being part of the same organization. But we've got to see League of Legends, not in a name, but we've seen LPL, we've seen LCK, we've seen some of these champions come through. Yuumi has been absolutely tearing it up for a while. Maokai has also been one of the strongest characters on the patch, but Ryze, Syndra, these are things that have been super, super strong throughout the early season thus far, and I'd be very surprised if they both got through. And if they got through, I'd be very surprised if they weren't picked. But Magical, before we go too far, I do want to take a little bit of an opportunity to kind of set up some of our expectations for both teams, just like across the entire board. Remember, CLG Challengers cannot be relegated. They will be playing next split. They will be playing until LCS is gone. CLG Faith, they will need to earn their spot. And so one of the things that I'm going to be really looking for is CLG Challengers maybe playing a little bit more safely, where CLG Faith just kind of throwing things at the wall, seeing what sticks in order to make sure that they can upset some of the teams that they were expecting to be stronger.
Is making it through. Syndra, even looking at Varus, another mainstay pick ban champion, getting let through the wayside. And I'm wondering if that's just going to be the first picks here for CLG Faith with that Syndra and then Varus right afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, the changes to Rod of Angels and Seraph's Embrace have made both these characters super strong in the laning phase, where they typically weren't nearly as oppressive, especially with the fairly recent Syndra rework. She's able to get a lot of these Syndra bucks, basically, right? You hit somebody with 2 spells, you get a Syndra dollar, and when you get enough of them, you can't upgrade all of your abilities. Yeah, I mean, that's how it works. You got your Victor bucks, you got your Syndra bucks, you got your Senna bucks, Thresh bucks, everybody has different kinds of currencies.
Yeah, it seems like we're having a little bit of a bug at the moment. Hopefully we'll be able to get that fixed up so we can see what has been picked up. But let's really dive in while we have an opportunity. Oh, there it is. So actually, NXI grabbing Graves here, and that's a typical NXI pick. And another thing that we've been seeing, a lot of these farming junglers kind of working very well.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense, right? NXI has been a carry jungler for his entire career. We've been seeing things like the Lee Sin, the Nidalee coming through almost every single time. But on the other side, being matched with, wow, this Did you see how fast they locked that Ziggs? They are ready to go to this Caitlyn
That's
Lux.
That's special, too.
Yeah, it's a specialty, and it's something that you play into Caitlyn Lux in order to actually try and combat some of their range. It definitely feels as though CLG Faith was expecting some of this coming out, and Low Belly maybe getting a little bit too much scrim data from what Juves has been seeing.
Maybe. I mean, I'm very curious on that, because Varus, I was talking about that before, being this premier ADC, Lucian being the other one, Caitlyn kind of being right below that tier. Instead, they go for the Ziggs, more poke, especially against the long range that they have in this bot lane, which makes you then look to Plux and what Plux wants to play. That Ashe being banned, that's a support Ashe taken off of the table, so even more poke is gone, and that then brings up the point, Heimerdinger, how likely is he?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I'm not super convinced that it would be that strong because of the amount of range that CLG Challengers is already showing on the board, but it is something that we know can be brought to the forefront almost immediately, and it is very, very tough to actually deal with due to some of the range advantages that they have. Now, we get to see a couple of things, a little bit of spoilers. I'm going to hold my hand up so I can't see quite what was going on, but we already know that there's going to be some spicy picks coming out here very shortly.
Well, it's really, I'm looking at the support pick for Plux, and curious to see what we're going to get for him. Well, mostly because that Ashe ban. The Ashe ban, to me, indicates that you want to take away something that's going to be able to do a lot of poke. The Pyke ban, a little bit more interesting. I guess they want to deny that all in. And that Heimerdinger I was talking about, that is a possibility, but then you're also super heavy indexed into AP without really a frontline either. So I'm kind of curious to see what they end up drafting here for Plux, if it's going to be Wait.
Yeah.
Is that Jhin ADC?
No.
Or Jhin support?
That's Jhin support, baby. We've been seeing this a little bit
Smacks.
in Pro. Now,
where's Smacks at?
I'm not super convinced on this character being good in the support role, but the things that it does do, you have that long distance route, you can actually play with this long range, and you get picks. It means that anything that you do gives you this insane alpha strike, right? You lock down one person, they instantly die, but the CLG Challengers roster, on the other hand, has something that is very classic, right? Every single one of their characters has been strong. Cassante as well is actually going to be probably playing a little bit more in the tank half of his ability, just because he wants to make sure that he takes a ton of damage before he uses his ult, because he can 1v1 every single one of these characters.
All right, they also have Sejuani on the team, so you got two good choices in tanks. Cassante doesn't necessarily have to. I think it's going to be more dependent on what Bajani wants to play here against that Cassante. If he wants to go for something that might be able to battle a bit more or be another tank, just pretty much a wet noodle fight in the top lane.
And you say it's a wet noodle fight. This is one that Cassante is going to win almost every drawn-out fight. And
well, that's because he does true damage based off max health.
Well, the big thing is just like he just has so many spells, right? Orange cooldowns are on such long cooldowns, whereas Cassante is going whack, whack. The Tonfa is going back and forth. And so I'm really expecting this to be a big opportunity for CLG Challengers to kind of strut their stuff a little bit, right? In particular, the top lane and the mid lane, where I think Jenkins and Copy should be finding some of the big advantages for this team.
Yeah, but now we have loaded up onto the Rift, and I see shenaniganeries abound, Joshi. We got 4 members of CLG Faith heading towards this bot lane. Unspotted so far. Oh, Breezy, though, nice ward placed down, saying, you know what? Not going to even test if there's something cheeky happening.
Yeah, get a little bit of gold, but the ward is destroyed. Over to Serenok a little bit there, but so far, not a whole lot of shenaniganeries, just a little bit of vision being traded back and forth. And so, Alex, kind of returning to some of the expectations that we had for these teams, right? We said that CLG Challengers, they can play a little bit more safe, whereas I would love to see CLG Faith play a little bit wilder over the course of the day.
Hey, they tried.
They tried. The big thing that I'm really going to be looking at is NACL on this team, right?
Okay.
Super hyped player coming in from a couple of years ago, and wow, 100-0. I'm gonna guess that's like 2-0, guys. I know you can do better than that. I know that there are more.
Spam in chat,
there's more
guys.
of you in the chat.
Come on, my dudes, you've got this. Spam CLG. We got to get something going on. But right now, we're just gonna watch this game as nothing too fanciful will happen right away. Did you see that there's a nice ward placed down by CLG Challengers right outside of the Raptors pit? So they'll have eyes on NXI and know the pathing that he'll be taking, especially because Kevy playing Sejuani, something that's not nearly as good at wave clearing, especially early into the game, needs to make sure they're keeping up pace with Graves.
Yeah, I mean, Sejuani, it's not less Sejuani, more a Kevy thing, right? Kevy was a player who gave up so many camps in order to try and make sure that things were happening on the map. Now that they're a little bit of a slower farmer compared to NXI's Graves, it's a big opportunity for them to kind of do that and feel all right about it. You don't need quite as much gold on the Sejuani as the Graves does. And with Caitlyn Lux, they can just go!
Flash in with the light binding, put that damage onto Breezy, but they still get the headshot first blood for Meech. Just the action out of Breezy, pulling that trigger and getting the kill.
That's your boy, Magical, coming at it right away, flashing forward, getting the binding down, and forcing a teleport immediately out of Sketch. This is not the end of the world, but this is a big loss coming out for CLG Faith, because this is a lane where if Caitlyn and Lux really get accelerated, they can take over the game. They are trying to skip that mid game, and getting those kills allows them to do that.
You know me, Flash is an offensive summoner spell. I love seeing plays like that. Breezy showing already this split why I loved him last year and trying to make himself in the conversation of why we got to talk about him this year.
Yeah, already looking pretty good for CLG Challengers. And again, on the rest of the map, it's not super surprising that we're not seeing a whole lot of action just quite yet, but we do have to note where the junglers have ended up. Now that they are both on the bottom side, because Meech and Breezy got that kill, they are able to back a little bit earlier. Actually pretty difficult for Sketch and Plux to get a freeze going on the far side of the map, as we get a little bit of a replay coming through.
Like I said, just look at the flash. The flash from Breezy is the big thing for me. They just like, yeah, you're out of position. You have no way to escape me. Even if you kill me, we'll kill you too.
Yeah. And we also see like the bomb missing. That might have been the difference, right? If it lands onto Breezy for...
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, Plux to get that extra auto attack in for the counter kill, but credit to Sketch and Plux, they are still remaining fairly even in CS, but because their backs have been kind of desynced, it allows Meech and Breezy to really establish themselves again on the bottom half of the map, getting waves underneath the threat. And if you're doing that to a Ziggs, as a Ziggs player myself, it is so miserable trying to CS early levels underneath your turret. You have no AP, your bombs do no damage, and your auto attacks are so slow. So if they can do that, they can recoup the lost CS.
Well, and that's the reason why you picked Ziggs in the first place, is to win the lane, to get plates, to try to see if you can topple that structure quickly so you can rotate out of this lane phase and not get shoved back into your turret and have to struggle just to farm.
Yeah. This is pretty good, actually, from Sketch and Plex. Now they have a little bit more control over the lane, but without any support and not a whole lot of vision, they do have to respect where Heavy can be. And this is something that Sketch and Plex, I'm actually kind of curious, right? I saw Myra in the chat, their manager, will be having opportunities to kind of hype up and give a little bit more insight, but it is a situation where Sketch has been playing support for a while, like in his solo queue games, in their opportunities to try and scrim. They, again, lost their AD carry fairly recently, and now they kind of have to switch gears, and I'm not super surprised that they chose to go with Ziggs on their first game.
No, this is also a Sketch special. He was really proficient at a lot of these AP marksmen in bot lane, playing those pretty effectively. Karthus is another one that I would think of, but you can see here, they are struggling to face off against Breezy and Meech. Sure, they got a little bit of a trade back, but now that Sketch has low mana, Meech and Breezy should be able to easily control this next wave.
Yeah, Heavy in the mid lane though, looking for this gank. Serenok 6.
Oh, good flash. Good flash.
Yeah, good stuff. Not going to be able to get a whole lot of damage back down. This gives CLG Challengers, remember there's two CLG teams, an opportunity to look to play towards the bottom side a little bit more.
You could just call them Challengers and Faith, because we both know CLG's in this game.
True.
I'm just saying.
It's not often that it happens, Alex, that we have two teams under the same organization, but Jenkins again.
Well, it should happen 3 times.
It'll happen, yes.
I'm just saying.
We might not castle. But look
I
at
know,
the difference
but I'm
that
just
we're
saying
seeing
it
already
will
come up
happen
in the
3
top
times.
lane.
That'll be the case. Either way, I'm kind of looking at this top lane now, and it's sure Kasante's winning. You know, Jenkins is getting that lead against Bajane, but it's Ornn. I feel like Ornn is actually, even if he's not going to be able to win against Kasante, at least he's going to be fine. He's just going to be a tank later into the game.
Yeah, it's Ornn. He's got a trucker hat. But look at the damage.
He does not have a trucker hat yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Try and get that
One day.
Look at the damage that we're already starting to see come through. Even though the gold lead isn't super large, and again, Sketch is doing a fantastic job farming. The fact that they had to back and not get an item, they just got that refillable potion, means that it's so hard to maintain your mana in these protracted engagements, and all the priority that they end up getting because of that first kill for Breezy flashing forward, they're not going to be able to pick up the Dragon. They're starting to threaten this first play a little later than they maybe wanted to, but still going to be a big golden. Oh,
a little bit of a skirmish in the top lane, but NXI is nearby. Jenkins had already popped all out, so look at the damage he was able to provide onto Bajani, flashing away from the knockup, and NXI is pretty much just there now, say, no, you can't kill him, you've used the all out, we're going to keep our Ornn safe.
Yeah, going to be forcing the teleport out of Bajani though, and not going to be losing a whole lot of his way, but sticking around and look where Coffee is.
Coffee's got that Realm Warp, but NXI has been hanging out as well. Has not left the vicinity. With that collateral damage now available, seems that Jenkins didn't really want to risk it, and Coffee went back to mid lane.
Yeah. Honestly, this is kind of what we were talking about, right? A much more tempered opportunity coming through for the Challengers team. You actually can notice the plate that went down in the bottom lane, that wasn't picked up by Meech and Breezy. They valued the tempo more. They didn't feel like they needed gold. They wanted to make sure that they weren't stuck in the bottom lane when things around the top side were happening. And now as they shift everybody towards the top side, this is very clean macro. It's 8 minutes into the game. The Rift Herald has spawned, and look at where NXI is. He just cleared out all of his top camp.
Yeah, and there's a little trade of damage on a Copy here, but as you talked about, rotations from Challengers, CLG should be able to get this Rift Herald for themselves, even though both teams are CLG. That's going to be confusing. Maybe I'll just have a team fight where all I'm doing is kind of calling out, like, CLG's doing this. CLG's winning.
Which one?
CLG's losing.
Yeah, we'll definitely have opportunities for that. We'll take a look at that later, but this is, definitely a trade coming through by Challengers that they have opted into, giving Meech and Breezy opportunities on the top side of the map, whereas Jenkins is going to be trying to deal with Sketch on the bottom side.
I'm confused. How is it a trade? I feel like it's just a win-win across the board for CLG Challengers.
Originally, it was looking to potentially be a trade, but Sketch just doesn't have the AP to take down the first play, and so that's becoming an unequivocal win, right? Sketch losing a little bit of time. The way that CLG Challengers has been playing this, again, just textbook, they have a small advantage, and now should be able to create even more pressure on the map. And they're doing a good job trying to get Meech and Breezy past that relatively weak mid-game, where characters like the Cinder really start to...
And with two neutral objectives taken by CLG's Challengers, it looks like Faith are just struggling. This could be their pick onto Copy, but he just flashes out of there. That damage, though, the double up ult takes it out.
There you go. That's what happens when you have both of the ults, like you said, coming through. Saranok finds a stun. NXI is over the wall, and they just take down Copy instantly, not expecting Graves to be around, and they're immediately using the opportunity to move towards the top side.
Now Jenkins looking for that fight against Bajani. All out popped, getting so much true damage onto Ornn. Looking for the fight, looking for the knockup to be able to pull him back in, but the flash away. Bajani will be safe as top lane. Breezy, 1v2, gets plucked so low.
Wow. Lots of trading across the map, right? A couple ults being expended, but not a whole lot actually coming out of it. Jenkins has a little bit of a lead in the bottom side, but we get to take a look at the mid lane play again. This is pretty easy, right? Very standard Syndra stuff. You aren't allowed to move out of the lane and come back in. It's an easy stun, and with the flash ultimate, NXI guarantees the kill. Very good stuff, very classic play, and a little bit of an oversight coming in from Copy, just not knowing where the Graves was and stepping a little bit too far forward, and he gets punished.
You know what that play is? He's expecting it to be a 1v1 duel mid lane. As a mid laner, this is what I have happened often.
Yeah, but you also play Tank Lilia.
Hey, that was good.
Definitely upset Alk Battery.
It upset everyone. It was great. Everyone just like, I hate this. Why doesn't he die? Anyways, but we're not talking about that because that got nerfed. I'm talking about how Copy is looking at that and how he bounces back into this lane phase, right? Because sure, he died, but he's still got the same CS. He's got himself that Catalyst in his inventory, looking for that Rod of Ages, as well as stacking up the Tear of the Goddess. With just a minute left until the next neutral objective spawns, I feel like CLG Challengers still have full control despite their mid laner having died.
Oh yeah, they're already here first. Caitlyn and Lux are not yet in that trough, and they are committing everything as the Mega Inferno Bomb. It's not going to do a whole lot. This is still going to get at least 2 plays, almost taking the turret in its entirety. But Sketch and Flux, they'll defend the turret, but they have lost control over the Dragon, and nobody on the top side of the map, neither Jenkins nor Bajani, have teleports. So this 4v4 is very easily something that the Challengers team should be able to control. And now, I think for NXI a little bit.
And that's what I wanted to pivot the conversation to, too, is NXI. He's been farming up. It has been nearly reciprocated by Kevy, surprisingly so. But with Umbral Glaive already completed by NXI, they really, like we already talked about that too, right? We already said that NXI is going to be the player that we have to keep our eyes on, but even more so now. This is all on the back of NXI because bot lane hasn't been going so well. They haven't got a single plate, and you can see right there just getting caught. Sketch has to flash away just in the 2v2, knowing how low he'd get, and Plux, he's got low as well just from a simple pilt over Peacemaker.
Yeah, I mean, Breezy, again, playing so well. These roots creating so many opportunities so far for the rest of his team, and it means that they are going to be getting yet another dragon for themselves, the Infernal into the mountain. And even though the gold lead feels fairly small, the fact that they are slowly building this up is still quite good for the Challengers team, as this turret is very close to falling. That's another ult being expended by CLG.
And here, again, a fight between Jenkins and Pashani. Looking bad for Zani as he missed the Orn Horn. And so Jenkins gets his solo bolo against the new top laner 2 Challengers.
Let's go, Jenkins. I was expecting this to happen. I expected it to only be a matter of time. But 13 minutes in, Jenkins is finding that first kill for themselves. And Jenkins was one of these players that, you know, played in LCS for a little while, was on Team Liquid Academy before moving over to CLG, and has always been one of these kind of decent at all points of the game kind of players who really creates opportunities later.
Think back to before Bradley even joined the team when he was on Team Liquid Academy. This guy was the talk of the town.
Oh, he was so good back then, right? He had so many cool plays, but they weren't oftentimes coming in the laning phase, right? It would oftentimes be his ability to play things like the Aatrox and the Cannon and create crazy angles later on for some of these big fights. And that's one of the things, when Jenkins starts getting these solo kills, when Jenkins starts really winning the lane, it becomes almost impossible for a lot of other teams to really deal with that. And we'll see what the Faith answer is going to be.
I mean, with mid lane and jungle having only slight advantages over their opponents, and having that Rod of Ages built up by Copy at the moment, things are looking really dicey unless you're able to find, like, I'd have to argue 3 picks in a row just to make sure you can get more AP onto Serenok. I'd be curious to look at how many stacks he has and whereabout he is in power spike that Syndra can get. Because if once you get to the 100 stacks, usually that's when you see Syndra's really starting to pop off.
True. I mean, even just hitting, I believe it's a 50 mark is the first time you can spend some of those Syndra bucks. You become a lot
it's the first time you can spend it, but that's not when you feel like super powerful.
Yeah, but it allows you to do all the cool combos that kind of make Syndra feel like a champion. True. Challengers are going to be picking up another Rift Herald for themselves, but there's a potential play on the other side as you have 3 members looking at a potential dive, but Copy is not going to be taking any risks. Got burned once, going to be trying to take away some of these camps before NXI can do it.
Yeah, and with NXI showing in the spot lane, guess what Kevy was doing the whole time? He took the Rift Herald. Completely unopposed. There's nothing they could do because Bajani can't fight against Jenkins anymore. They got to get him out of that lane completely, because anytime he oversteps, even with Flash now, Jenkins, as long as he has Ghosts, is just going to hunt down Bajani and kill him.
Yeah, it's such a tough side lane at this point. The bad part is, it doesn't really get a whole lot better later on, right? Ornn is not a character that's super known for their ability to play in the side lane, and if they really want to do something on the side, it's probably going to be off of the back of like a Warmonks, where you just out-attrition your opponent. But this is cheeky from NXI, and Serenok and Plux.
Oh, Breezy saw him, though. Breezy, right place, right time to deny them going and killing Kevy inside of their own jungle.
Good play coming out from Kevin. The one thing that I do really like about the Jhin support, as well as the fact that they have the Syndra on their team, is you get a lot of free vision. You get a lot more pressure with these traps to see where people are, and it could be an opportunity for Sketch and Plux to maybe push up a little bit farther, but because they've lost the side turrets, because they don't have a ton of vision control on either side of the river, these traps are just kind of a band-aid when they could be a source of strength for the team. And now, as we're getting closer to the next dragon, and it is a M-Tech soul, you are going to be losing a lot of opportunity to walk in, because you really need to be everywhere first playing Syndra and Zed.
See, you were saying great things, but then I started thinking about AP Jhin, and I missed those days. Just having the traps down and then landing Deadly Flourish on top of them and just seeing someone die instantly.
Yeah, you can still do that in Earth if you want. But
you can, it's not as good as it was like absolutely busted when he first came out. I mean, granted, Jhin was absolutely busted when he first came out.
Yeah. here we go. As everybody moves in towards the mid lane, creating a little bit more pressure. The one thing that challengers really need to do in order to kind of blow this game open is take down this mid lane. Because you're going to have trouble taking these structures later on between the Syndra and the Ziggs with the amount of clear that they will actually have. Oh no, Breezy.
Oh, Breezy looks caught. I talked about picks, and they got a pick on a Breezy trying to go for an adventure inside of the opposing jungle.
I wonder what happened there. I mean, the E wasn't used into the push. They didn't have a... Well, yes, but what happened? Breezy still had his flash. He didn't check the push. That's just a great play coming out from CLG Faith, punishing another mistake. And now, we were saying they wouldn't be able to actually get to this dragon first because Breezy's gone. That's all their vision. That's a lot of their pick tools just off the table. Now, Faith should be able to counteract with at least one dragon. What do challengers do to respond? They can't really take this turret super easily.
I think that they just try to at least get damage onto it.
Yeah.
They have Rift Herald still. There it is, popped. So that's what you do. You just try to get as much damage onto it so you can set up a future play. Or they are TPing down Jenkins. They've got a flank, and there's going to be the TP coming in for Bajani. So all of them are going to be there. With how low that dragon is at the moment, using the satchel to get rid of Kevy, but now he's jumped over the wall. So Kevy has to flash away. But the turret did get taken. Actually, two got taken mid lane by Meech and Copy.
That's a great play coming from the challengers, even giving up the one dragon. CLG Faith overcommitting, and Kevy just teasing them a little bit, right? Making sure that they don't go anywhere else. They're able to get the dragon, but at such crazy cost. It feels as though CLG challengers, this has been one of the big differences between a lot of the challenger teams and what we're expecting to be from a lot of the provisional teams. It's just they have a lot more experience. They are ready to just go and fight. They have these ideas where they see you go for something and they will push it. And CLG challengers absolutely playing to their strengths right now.
Well, you have a team where 4 of the members played together last split, and then a great star in Copy brought over. This team is one of those teams on paper that you expect to do very well in the Challengers circuit, in the Challengers League. Yeah. And then you got to go up against a team that, as yourself, you're scrimming against. You know that these are the players that are slightly above you. Even if you are doing your damnedest, you have players that have been together for a long time in Bajani and Serenok. Not all of them have had that luxury of being a 4-man squad for half a year already. Though they look for a pick here against Breezy and Meech. Unfortunately, you can see how little damage Plux does with that curtain call.
Yeah, not going to be doing a whole lot there, but while we wait for the next objectives to kind of come onto the map, unless CLG start going for the Baron, I kind of want to go back again to our expectations for both of these teams, right?
Rewind time.
CLG Faith, their goal for their players should be getting onto CLG Challengers by, summer or maybe 2024. Whereas the CLG Challengers players, their goal should be trying to get into LCS. And one of the big things that we'll always look at the CLG, or Challengers teams, is how well are they actually going to be promoted. Why we were big fans of Team Liquid 100 Thieves last year is because they combined promoted all 5 players that moved from the academy scene into LCS. Both of these teams are looking to promote that, and some of the players that they have had in the past, right? Jenkins has been one of those forerunners for us. Copy was someone that we were saying should absolutely be looking for opportunities to play LCS. And Meech and Breezy, if they continue playing the way that they did in summer, can very easily start vying for spots by summer 2023.
I'd even argue how they played this early game. They were so aggressive and made sure to get an early kill for Meech. There's so much potential for CLG Challengers. And going into this game, how everything is unfolded, you've seen that synergy they've had. What is it? 4 of the 5 neutral objectives have been secured by Challengers. They've even gotten 4 turrets and a charge from Shelly on the inhibitor turret mid.
Yeah. You can't read the scoreboard at the top. That's what it's there for.
I could read that, but I also could figure it out myself. Use big brain.
I like the pride coming through over there, Magical, but it is situational.
Look, back in my day, we didn't have no fancy scoreboard. We had to memorize all this stuff, like timers and all that. We had to know that by heart.
Yeah, old players will remember when you started saying like OB, OR, TB, TR, and then put a timer in the chat for all the different buffs. Now it's on the scoreboard as well. But we'll reminisce a little bit more later, just because I'm continuing to expect, I'm looking at the players who were looking to move up to the next level. And NXI, I think, is also a player coming in from Faith that has played well, right? We had a little bit of a question. They've been off for basically an entire year. Will they still be the NXI we knew and loved? And so far, the answer seems to be yes, but the only thing is they're on Graves, and they are just looking for opportunities for other players to set them up, and we haven't been seeing a lot coming out from Plex just quite yet. Serenok did give them that one big kill, but Pajani has not had an opportunity to really do anything for NXI, and so Graves on this character that requires a little bit of setup. Maybe next game we put NXI on a character where he can make his own plays a little.
Oh no. Flux cleanse, but what does it matter? Meech was right there. You were dead, mate, once that landed.
Yeah, good stuff. And it's right before the dragon spawns as well. This is when people would be looking to get their backs in or start setting up a lot of vision. And CLG find the pick at the perfect time, this time onto Plux. And they're looking... This is a tough dive. I don't think they want to go for it.
Also, the fact that Plux will be back up, he's only, what, level 8, I think, at the moment. So he's got very low death timers. He'll be back up onto the playing field. More than enough time to get the team into position around that dragon to see if they can counteract that. But the biggest problem, I think, goes back to what you were talking about and how NXI, he's just completed his Eclipse, but everyone else really is struggling outside of Serenok. You don't even have the second item just yet for Sketch. He's been well behind because he wasn't able to get any plates nor any turrets for the team so far. Top lane, we don't expect Pajani on Ornn to really be dominating, but you'd at least like him to start gifting out some of those items, though that pick on a Meech by Serenok might as well be what they need.
Yeah, that's another big pick for CLG Faith.
Okay, that's a lot of ults to use on NXI. Try to get over the wall. There's still Kevy flashing out of there. And guess what's happening on the top side? Coffee's like, hey, you're all there trying to make sure you can get that dragon. My jungler's still in it away. I got a lot of damage past the threshold. And Jenkins now, he could be in a little bit of danger, but not enough members were nearby.
Oh, it's a super tragedy for Faith, but Kevy doing such a good job creating pressure around this dragon, even though they're not going for a copy. Should be out. No, he's done.
Nice. Nice stun there, looking for the damage. Here comes the cavalry. The flash from Coffee. 1v1. He looks for Serenok. He takes him down. Here's the cavalry trying to fight, but Coffee dodging away, doing his best to get a little bit of damage on the outside, but the shutdown barely in time to make sure Breezy couldn't save them.
Oh, Breezy.
Breezy, that damage, not enough. Now Breezy, even though it looked like it could have been a good pick, has to back off. He's only got so much damage, and if he doesn't land all those skill shots, it's pretty much a moot point.
Yeah, the kill score is even, but the way that Kevy's creating space for people in the side lanes, for people in the mid lane to take all these objectives has been the difference for CLG Challengers. Serenok, as well, also been impressed with the way that they've played this game so far, finding some of the crucial picks, but I mean, when things like this happen, when Kevy comes over the wall and out-smites you, it makes the game so much more difficult. And remember, you can smite through stuns. It's not an excuse coming through there. It's just Kevy being better.
Yeah, he wasn't even stunned at that point. He was able to get out of it. It was just Kevy, like you said, being that much better, being on point. They were able to steal that away, so that means they're 1 point away from a Chemtech Soul. Which, honestly, I haven't gotten the luxury to cast just yet. Every time I've had it where I've done practice casts with the Chemtech Dragon, it always ends before that 4th one can get completed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the most exciting thing in the world.
I just like to see it, you know, it just,
I feel
it's new.
But I also want to say, like, despite the fact that NXI lost that smite, he's still kind of been... He's been playing this game quite well. I think that's like the one blemish that he's really had this game thus far is the fact that, you know, you lost a 50-50 smite. Your team wasn't able to separate the jungler from the dragon, and that's not entirely on NXI either, right? That's something where the rest of the team really needs to pitch in and keep the Sejuani out of the pit. Make sure that they are too scared, and you already had the extra pick, right? Meech was already dead. It's just one of those small things that has been separating some of the teams. But I know CLG Faith is a relatively young team. They're still going to be in a spot where they are building up this synergy, and I think we will be able to see that improve as the season goes on.
At the moment, CLG Challengers still in full control of the game. Making sure they're looking around that vision control of the next neutral objective being Baron. 2 minutes remaining until the Chemtech Dragon will be available for either team to get. I'm excited to say that Pajani now has gotten to that point. He is dishing out some of those ornaments and might actually make up for this gold deficit they find themselves against CLG Challengers, who, even though they're dominating the map at the moment, going to be a little bit more tricky, especially if it's just one good pick from Faith.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely another argument to be going on, right? Sarah not going with the Ludens and the Void Staff. Trading power later for power now, right? That's why the Rod of Ages has become so strong, is because you just have so much power later and your champions are strong enough early on. But Heavy, looking for Sketch.
Looking for it, but missing. Getting the Snatch charge, but that's a lot of damage. Looking for the Glacial, trying to see what they can get the knockup on. It's going to be Kevy, but Kevy's very tanky. Flux, you don't know how to damage. He's not even threatened by you. Copy now, you got to worry about, because he does a lot more damage than Jenkins on the other side. Didn't see that angle quite yet to go for the engage.
I'll be honest, I actually feel like CLG Faith are like out-handsing CLG Challengers quite a bit in a lot of these plays. Unfortunately, it's just the fact that they are down so much gold, and we had a couple good plays coming out from players like Breezy early on in the game. It makes it so much more difficult for them for that to matter at this point. Like, you still have these big opportunities to play later on, like Syndra is super strong as the game goes on, Orin gives you a lot of scaling, and of course Ziggs does bonkers damage the later the game goes. But I mean, you're playing basically for your life right now. The Chemtech Soul is coming up in 30 seconds, and I feel if CLG Challengers get that, it's probably going to be lights out because of the amount of extra stats it gives over the course of just a single fight.
Well, and you can even see that, talk about late game Ziggs being really crucial for this team, but he's still working on getting the Archangel staff finished. That Seraph's Embrace hasn't been completed yet. He is a long way off. He's a full, I'd say argue a full item behind Beach, since that hasn't been completed just yet. And with all 5 members now grouping around to fight over the soul potential that CLG Challengers find themselves in, Jenkins is looking to frontline, trying to get that damage onto Bajani. Bajani's going to be able to use that dash away back towards the team.
Yeah. As long as it's just kind of this ARAM, it should be kind of okay for the Faith squad, but now as they are starting to be in a situation where they have to walk into a lot of places blind, it becomes so much more dangerous. And Kevy, pulling the Dragon, the rest of his team doesn't need to necessarily help DPS, they just need to keep the other team off.
Luck just getting a little bit of damage. Nice riff. Realm Warp. There we go. Get out of there as they're taking this dragon, getting a little bit of damage. It's down to 75. A lot of damage on Bajani. They look to see if they can take him down. That's going to be a huge ult to the back line as Bajani is low, but he got the knockup onto Kevy. But what could they do afterwards? The tank is now too low to fight as Plux gets caught out by a light binding, but nobody follows that up. Even with the ace in the hole, it's not enough damage. Jenkins doing his best to zone away. 50% onto the dragon. And there goes Sketch! Coffee takes him out! Looking for Serenok, flashing away, but they've caught NXI. He's the hero, and he is gone. Serenok running for the hills, but Challengers challenge the Faith, and will take this game when they get that soul.
And it's Serenok that makes it out, but the way that Copy is playing so far forward, he knows he is so dang. He's got the Banshee's Veil, he's got the Seraph Shield, he's got a fully stacked Rod of Ages. He's not taking any damage from the other team. He's able to just walk up and get the EQ across the entire team. Absolutely nuts stuff coming through from CLG, and just the ability to create space around this Dragon Soul just made it so difficult for CLG Faith to do anything. You saw Bajani just taking so much damage from all the poke because you were able to put all the damage into a single character, and at that point, it doesn't matter how tanky you are. CLG Challengers firmly in control of this game. I'm expecting they'll try and take the Baron in order to get through all the wave clear, and that will probably be all she wrote for game 1.
Yeah, right now, the Faith, they tried, they looked for some fights, some picks, but it's Copy. Copy and Jenkins here in this fight are the true gods that juggernaut their way to success.
Yeah, and good stuff from Jenkins here, right? Bringing Bajani back into the rest of the team as, you know, both ankles kind of just miss. This is the big thing, right? After this is normally a situation where CLG Faith could back up and just leave the fight. They don't need to do anything further if this wasn't the soul. But as soon as it becomes a soul, you have to stick around. And unfortunately, it's Sketch that walks a little bit too close because they have nobody left the front line.
No, and then they could just chase down the important members. In a way, NXI, someone we were setting up to be one of the main carries for the team.
Oh, this is it.
Faith are actually going for a last hurrah. They're going for that Baron. Jenkins is on the other side. It's 50% on the Baron. Getting a little bit of a fight onto Kevy. Looking for the root. They've got it, but they still have to be careful. That's going to be the flash in. The damage with the light binding. Serenok gets low, but they got the knockup coming in. And there goes the headshot to get a killing free for Mijas. Coffee is rampant in the back line. That shield too huge for Serenok to take out. To the rest of GLG Faith are getting wiped by the Challenger squad, and they will get a clean ace to win this first game of the 2023 Spring Split.
Honestly, I like it from Faith. You gotta try and make something happen when you're this far behind. Maybe you had the tempo to go for that, but it ends up not working out. CLG Challenger is just so strong at this point of the game, and while we loved praising Copy for his play in the last fight, the fact that Meech is now 7-1-1 just talks about how well they've been positioning throughout the course of this game. And this should be it. You see Plux dancing in his own fountain, knows there's not a whole lot left to do.
Bye, Plux! He just got deleted! Like this game, it is over. That is CLG Challengers making sure that they show why they are the sister team, the one that is the fixed roster, as they take quite a clean game one.
Yeah, and this puts the Challenger squad in a fantastic position, right? They can no longer lose a series. They can draw it or they can win it, whereas on the other side, Faith has to win the next game in order to even get a draw on the board. But from what we've been seeing, it definitely feels as though the difference hasn't really necessarily been their individual play for the most part. It's actually been mostly about the fact that CLG Challengers are playing the map so much better.
I mean, it also helps when you have CLG Faith having Sketch, who was signed as the support, having to play back into the ADC role when he had been practicing and scrimming in a completely different role. But outside of that, you still see some shining hope for the Faith squad, right? NXI, Serenok did really well. But you know what? I feel like right now is time for us to bring back our lovely flex guests here in Mazel. So Mazel, you got to watch the whole game from an outsider's point of view. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all,
can you flex for us as well?
I don't have
You're the flex guy.
any muscles, so I don't have anything. First of all, great first game, guys. Honestly, it was a lot scrappier than I thought it was going to be in that mid game, but you guys hit the nail on the head. I think it was a lot of control of resources from CLG Challengers, and even though there were some bits and pieces that were really good for CLG Faith, there was obviously a clear difference there, Magical.
Yeah, there's a clear difference. Bot lane, Meech and Breezy getting an early kill, completely denying what that lane was drafted to do with Jhin and Ziggs, to take place and take turrets early into the game so they could snowball out of control. It was just great to see that Meech, Breezy still have that same synergy we saw built up in summer of last year, as well as the rest of the map. Jenkins, he looked fantastic on that Cassante, getting solo kills. When you talked about it, Josh, that he's usually someone that we're more known to see in team fights, and his team fights were still incredible.
Yeah, still played quite well. But the one thing I want to see a little bit more from both these squads, I know it's early in the season, this will improve as things go on, but I think one of the things that was kind of funny to me is the fact that Breezy got that kill in the 2v2 so early actually made it so much more difficult for CLG to go for one of their set plays, right? You saw Kevy coming down towards the bottom side of the map. Copy was building priority in order to just look for a potential dive, but you know, when you just kill him, like everybody's like, oh, well, I'm going to go back to farming. You guys did a good job. Just do it again. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly that. Especially, I got to give a shout out to Meech on the Caitlyn because something about this season coming in, we had talked about it in the pre-show, right? The fact that CLG Challengers were keeping 4 out of their 5 members, and they were bringing in Coffee in the mid lane. But the brightest point, I feel like, for CLG last year was the bot lane. And I think we all decided that Breezy probably had one of the best splits or best years of his career. But as well as Meech coming into the fold. And now as a sophomore, right? Having another year to kind of crack at it and have such a mechanically high ceiling. I'm really excited to see. Yes, it was Caitlyn. Yes, it was a lot of fun and a lot of snowbally, but I think you can see a little glimpse of what is potential for this bot lane for CLG Challengers, Magical.
I mean, it's the Meech Breezy special. That's why I was highlighting it before. I just feel like they were building up this energy last split, last year, and now we're seeing that it continues. The domination will continue to grow. Honestly, I'm with Josh when he said earlier in the broadcast that we have yet to see the ceiling of Meech. I feel like we are long away from seeing that ceiling, and he's got so much more room to grow, which is impressive after already having a 7-1 start to 2023.
No big deal, right? No big deal. Especially also, a special shout out to Serenok. I know it didn't go their way, but CLG Faith representing on the day. We're going to throw it away to a little break, and when we come back, we'll have a halftime segment.